Okay, so I am thinking now about where to start with this painting. And so I am going to start in the background. So many of you, as you have started this, are starting with furniture that's sitting in the foreground of your painting. And you really have to think about how you need to start behind and work your way forward. This is particularly useful if your background is lighter or darker. Now I have this giant window, and I don't think I want to paint what's actually outside the window, but I am going to kind of hint at what's outside the window because that's what will help make my painting make sense. So there's quite a lot of snow. You can see I had mixed a gray together with my blue or my purple and my yellow, and now I'm gonna try to get this white in here. I want sort of the sensation of it being out the window. I want the sensation of that it's winter and that it's brighter outside than it is inside. And so I am going to start in the background. As I'm painting, I'm also kind of constantly imagining how I'm simplifying and letting my paint be my paint, right? We've talked about this a lot in painting too, that it is a painting and that it's a-okay that it looks like a painting. I don't need it to look like the photograph. I need it to look and become the painting that it is. So I am simplifying those images that are outside the window and kind of just working with some of the structure that's there. And when I'm painting out here now, because I am simplifying, I'm kind of squinting at it, right? I'm looking for where is it most interesting and what part of that most interesting do I want to have happen out here in my painting, and what part of that is just sort of unnecessary to the story that I'm trying to tell in my actual painting. So I want the story of the snow, and so I have made, like I said, this sort of blue-gray color that I'm kind of using back here. I want good contrast with the elements that are inside my room, so I am making sure to kind of keep some of that contrasty. The dark gray cat really stands out against the background. I'm also thinking about how I'm using my brush so that I keep the brush strokes kind of telling the story of what's outside the window as well. I have some of this gray I need to get rid of. There we go. I'm gonna pull that stripe across over here. So I'm gonna ignore like the blocks of my entryway, and I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to put the house across the street in there or not. I'm sort of at this point undecided. I'm just gonna kind of paint as I go. I did grab color for that little house across the street, but I don't actually want to paint a detailed house over there. So I'm trying to kind of imagine what I can do to hint at that house across the street without actually painting that house across the street. I also need kind of some more of this purpley gray over here, because there is this darker patch up here that is, I think it's trees and such. I don't really need to know what it is exactly. I'm just gonna kind of use my paintbrush to sort of hint that it's just darker up here. But you can see I'm gonna work my way forward. Also notice I'm using that color pair. I have added in a little bit of that accent color that I knew that I would use, which was the phthalo blue. I'll also end up using some of that cobalt turquoise later on, but right now this is the color story that I'm telling, and it's the color story that I'm sticking with, even as I'm working my way kind of forward in my painting. Now, I cut the top of this off quite a bit when I did my transferring, so I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of debating what I'm gonna do back here. So right now I'm mixing a little bit of that kind of a rusty red in with some of my purpley gray. I might just kind of hint at, we'll see, I could end up having to paint that out. But at least I'm working from back to front right now. I'm kind of thinking about what would this look like. Kind of going to thinking about it as I'm painting, actually. I'm thinking about keeping this pretty abstract back here and making it a little bit more about just the color story that's happening. So I don't necessarily want this to be anything in particular. I want it to feel like out a window. I want it to kind of feel like there's something back there, but at the same time, I don't want it to take away from the painting that I'm doing inside the room. And so right away I see that's getting really bright. So I'm going to come back over here to my palette, and because it's orange, I'm going to mix in a little bit of the blue, and then maybe some of that unbleached titanium, because you get kind of more neutralized mixes from that color. And I'm just going to kind of play around with, what if I don't have anything super distinct back here at all? So you can see that that's sort of a thought process that I'm working my way through as I'm painting back here. Maybe that sense of vertical. So I'm kind of painting up and down. I like that pop of warmth back here, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not feeling the vibe of actually painting a house back here. So I'm kind of just playing around with what can I do so that there's some brightness out here and some color out here without there actually being a house back here. And then I'm just going to kind of work my way forward in my scene here. Want a little bit more. Going to have to break down and wash my paintbrush or use a new one. I need that sensation of full white back here, and I could have to wait until that full background is completely dry. So you can see how I've sort of simplified that house out of there. This is something that you can do all the time in the backgrounds of your paintings. Like, we don't need the background to be more interesting than the painting. We need the painting to be interesting. And so I'm kind of constantly thinking about what can I do to simplify and kind of eliminate things that are going to be distracting later on to my finished painting work, right? Want some more of that color to kind of come through. So I'm getting a little bit more of that paint to kind of finish moving that across. Painting over part of my window, I can always come back. Switching now again to more of that blue-gray. And you can see that I'm just kind of, like I said, playing with how do I keep that color story alive even though I'm working in the background, and then thinking about how am I simplifying that image so that the stuff in the background, the elements in the background, aren't going to take away from the painting itself. And this could have to be something that I work on again before finishing. And another trick is if you're finding that your colors are a little too hard, I'm grabbing a clean dry paintbrush now, And you can use that clean, dry paintbrush. I have a lot of wet paint back here to soften and kind of blur. And see, I can use that to sort of blur some of those edges that are a little hard. Sort of softly blend some of those colors together so that I have a little bit more muted. This is a good trick for backgrounds. It's a good trick if you're trying to blend from color to color. And like I said, that's just a clean, dry paintbrush over the top of paint that is still wet in my painting. So it gives you some idea of how fast I'm working as I'm working my way forward in this painting process.